Who is Elon Musk? Evocative, slightly mysterious, with a technological feel. Opens with a montage of iconic images, a Falcon 9 rocket landing, a Tesla Model S gliding silently, the Starship prototype reaching for the sky, a close-up of the Neuralink chip, the X logo pulsating. Interspersed are quick cuts of Elon Musk through the years, a young entrepreneur, a stressed CEO during production hell, and a confident figure on stage. To some, he is a real-life Tony Stark. A visionary industrialist single-handedly pulling humanity into the future. The man who builds electric cars, reusable rockets, and wants to connect our brains to computers. To others, he is a reckless gambler. A controversial titan of industry whose ambition is matched only by his unpredictability. A figure who commands global attention with a single tweet. He is the richest man in the world, yet he seems driven by something far beyond wealth. A mission. A deeply ingrained fear for the future of humanity, and an audacious, almost fanatical belief that he is the one to save it. Oh, understand the rockets, the cars, the controversies, and the ambition, you have to go back to the beginning. Not to Silicon Valley, but to a turbulent childhood in Pretoria, South Africa, where a lonely, bullied boy found refuge not in people, but in books and the limitless world of his own imagination. This is the story of how that boy became the engineer of tomorrow. Elon Reeve Musk was born in 1971. South Africa under apartheid was a nation isolated and fraught with tension. His father, Errol Musk, was a brilliant but stern engineer. His mother, May Musk, a Canadian model and dietitian. From an early age, Elon was different. He was quiet, introspective. His mother recalls moments where he would stare into the distance, so lost in thought they would check if he was deaf. They called them blankouts. In reality, his mind was running. He wasn't just daydreaming, he was designing. He devoured books. It is said he read the entire Encyclopedia Britannica by the age of 9, and then moved on to science fiction, which would profoundly shape his worldview. Isaac Asimov's Foundation series taught him about the cycles of civilization and the importance of preserving knowledge. Douglas Adams' The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy posed the ultimate question: what are the right questions to ask? His intellect made him an outcast. School was brutal. He was small for his age, bookish, and a target for bullies. In one horrific incident, he was thrown down a flight of concrete stairs and beaten until he blacked out. The experience left him with physical and emotional scars, reinforcing a sense of isolation but also forging a steely resilience. He found his first real connection in the glowing pixels of a computer screen. At 12, he taught himself to code and created a video game called Blaster. It was a simple space shooter, but it was his. He sold the code to a computer magazine for $500. It was the first spark of the entrepreneur. The first time he turned an idea from his mind into money in his pocket. But South Africa felt small, its future uncertain. Elon saw his future across the ocean, in the land of technological dreams, America. At 17, using his mother's Canadian citizenship as a stepping stone, he left South Africa, determined to make his way to the United States. He was alone, with a backpack and a head full of ideas that the world was not yet ready for. After a brief stint at Queen's University in Canada, Musk finally reached his goal, the University of Pennsylvania. He studied physics and economics, two disciplines that would define his career, understanding how the universe works, and how to build a business within it. But the real action wasn't in the lecture halls. It was online. The dot-com boom of the mid-90s was a gold rush, and Musk, along with his brother Kimball, wanted in. In 1995, with just a few $1,000s from their father, they started their first company, Zip2. The idea was simple, but ahead of its time: an online city guide, a sort of primitive Google Maps and Yelp rolled into one, providing businesses with an internet presence. Their life was the definition of startup grind. They rented a tiny office in Palo Alto, and instead of getting an apartment, they slept on a futon in that same office. They showered at the local YMCA. They had one computer. By day, the website ran on it. By night, Elon coded on it. It was a relentless, all-consuming existence. Elon was the driving force, the coder who worked until he dropped. Kimball was the salesman, pounding the pavement. Slowly, it worked. They signed up newspapers, including the New York Times and the Chicago Tribune. In 1999, as the dot-com bubble was reaching its peak, PC manufacturer Compaq came knocking. They bought Zip2 for $307 million in cash. Elon's share was $22 million. At 28 years old, he was a millionaire. A normal person might have bought an island and retired. Elon Musk bought a McLaren F1, one of the fastest cars in the world. But he wasn't celebrating the end of a journey. He was just refueling for the next one. He had tasted success, and now he wanted to change the world. His next target, the entire banking industry. In 1999, Elon poured $10 million of his new fortune into his next venture, X.com. His vision was audacious, a one-stop shop for all financial services, banking, insurance, investments. It was a mission to demystify and democratize finance. At the very same time, just down the street, another company called Confinity was working on a similar problem. Led by Peter Thiel and Max Levchin, their killer app was a simple way to beam money between Palm Pilots, which they later adapted for email. They called it PayPal. X.com had the grand vision and the capital. PayPal had the elegant technology and a growing, loyal user base. They were fierce competitors, burning through money to acquire customers. But as the dot-com bubble began to hiss, they realized they were stronger together. In March of 2000, X.com and Confinity merged. It was a tense marriage of different cultures. Musk, with his grand, top-down vision, became CEO. The Confinity crew, including Thiel and Levchin, were wary of his leadership style and his insistence on the X.com brand, which they felt sounded vaguely pornographic. The tension came to a head while Musk was on a delayed honeymoon, a fundraising trip that had been turned into a vacation. The PayPal faction staged a boardroom coup. While Elon was in the air, flying to Australia, the board fired him and reinstated Peter Thiel as CEO. It was a brutal lesson in corporate politics. But Musk, despite being ousted from his own company, remained the largest shareholder. And he had a feeling the story wasn't over. The new company, now officially rebranded as PayPal, exploded in popularity, becoming the default payment system for the booming online auction site, eBay. In July 2002, eBay acquired PayPal for a staggering $1.5 billion. Elon Musk's take was over $180 million, after taxes. He was now wealthier than he could have ever imagined. But as he looked at his bank account, he wasn't thinking about mansions or yachts. He was thinking about things he'd been dreaming of since he was that boy in South Africa. He was thinking about space. And he was thinking about the future of energy. He was about to make the biggest gamble of his life. With nearly $200 million, Musk had enough FU money to last 1,000 lifetimes. He did something else. He created what his friends called F-me money. He decided to risk it all. Not on one moonshot. But on two, and eventually three, industries that were famous for incinerating fortunes: space, electric cars, and solar energy. First, space. Musk's logic was chillingly simple. He believed that for humanity to have a long-term future, it must become a multiplanetary species. A single catastrophic event on Earth, an asteroid, a supervolcano, a man-made disaster, could wipe us out. Mars was the lifeboat. But getting to Mars was impossibly expensive. The cost of launching anything into space was astronomical. So he went to the one place he thought he could get a deal, post-Soviet Russia. His plan? To buy refurbished intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs, to launch a small greenhouse to Mars, a project he called Mars Oasis. The Russians, however, didn't take the young internet millionaire seriously. They laughed him out of the room. Flying home, dejected, Musk had an epiphany. He pulled out his laptop and started running the numbers. He realized that the raw materials for a rocket were only about 2% of the final price. The rest was bloated bureaucracy and a lack of innovation. He could do it himself. He could build a cheaper, better rocket from first principles. In 2002, he founded Space Exploration Technologies. SpaceX. The goal was insane: to reduce the cost of spaceflight by a factor of 10, and eventually, 100. His secret weapon? Reusability. Instead of throwing away the most expensive part of the rocket every time, why not land it and fly it again? It was a brutal, heartbreaking journey. The first Falcon 1 launch, in 2006, ended in a fiery explosion just seconds after liftoff. The second launch, a year later, reached space but failed to make it to orbit. The third launch, in 2008, failed again, destroying the rocket and NASA satellites it was carrying. Musk was on the brink of ruin. He had poured $100 million of his own money into SpaceX. He had enough for one more launch. 1. If it failed, SpaceX was over. On September 28, 2008, the fourth Falcon 1 successfully reached orbit. It was the first privately funded liquid-fueled rocket to do so. Against all odds, SpaceX was alive. A few months later, NASA, seeing the potential, awarded SpaceX a $1.6 billion contract to resupply the International Space Station. The gamble had paid off. Tesla. But while Musk was fighting to keep his rocket company alive, his other great gamble was also on the verge of collapse. In 2004, he had invested in a tiny electric car startup called Tesla Motors, founded by Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. They had a plan to put a lithium-ion battery pack into a Lotus Elise chassis. Musk wasn't just a passive investor. He became chairman of the board and was deeply involved in the design of their first car, the Roadster. He saw what others didn't, that electric cars didn't have to be slow, ugly golf carts. They could be desirable, high-performance machines. But building a car from scratch is hell. The Roadster was plagued by production delays, cost overruns, and internal conflicts. By 2008, the same year as SpaceX's last chance launch, Tesla was hemorrhaging cash. The global financial crisis hit. Credit markets froze. Musk faced an impossible choice. He had a small amount of money left. He could save one company, but not both. Should he let Tesla die to save SpaceX? Or split the money and risk them both dying? In his own words, he was waking up from nightmares, screaming. In the final hours of Christmas Eve 2008, with Tesla literally days from bankruptcy, a last-ditch funding round came through. At the same time, the NASA contract for SpaceX was finalized. Both companies were saved, by the skin of their teeth. Musk, now CEO of Tesla, pushed the company forward with ruthless determination, betting everything on their next car, the Model S. This wasn't a niche sports car, it was a sedan meant to compete with BMW and Mercedes. The entire future of the company rested on its success. The industrialist, scaling the dream. The period after 2008 marked a stunning transformation. The desperate gambler became the dominant industrialist. SpaceX didn't just survive, it conquered. The Falcon 9 rocket, with its reusable first stage, shattered the global launch market. Watching a 14-story booster return from space and land perfectly on a drone ship named, "Of Course I Still Love You," became an iconic symbol of 21st-century innovation. They began launching astronauts for NASA, ending America's reliance on Russia. And they started building Starlink, a constellation of thousands of satellites designed to provide high-speed internet to every corner of the globe. Tesla's Model S was a resounding success. It won every major award and proved that electric vehicles could be the best cars in the world, period. But Musk's ambition was grander. He didn't just want to sell luxury cars, he wanted to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. That meant scale. It meant building the gigafactory in the Nevada desert, a colossal plant to produce batteries on a scale the world had never seen. And it meant building a car for the masses, the Model 3. The ramp-up for the Model 3 was, in Musk's words, production hell. The company once again teetered on the brink of collapse as it struggled to mass-produce the car. Musk famously slept on the factory floor, working 120-hour weeks, trying to personally solve bottlenecks. Through the chaos, Tesla emerged as the most valuable car company on the planet. Along the way, Musk's vision for a sustainable future expanded. Tesla acquired SolarCity, a company run by his cousins, integrating solar power generation and battery storage like the Powerwall into a single clean energy ecosystem. He also launched new ventures. The Boring Company, an effort to defeat soul-destroying traffic with a network of tunnels. And perhaps his most science fiction-like endeavor, Neuralink, a company developing ultra-high bandwidth brain-computer interfaces, designed initially to help people with paralysis, but with the long-term goal of merging human consciousness with artificial intelligence. A goal he sees as essential for our survival against a potential super AI. By the early 2020s, Elon Musk was no longer just a CEO. He was a figure of historic proportions, a man running companies that were fundamentally reshaping space travel, transportation, and energy. He had reached the pinnacle of success. But a new, more tumultuous chapter was about to begin. As his wealth and influence grew, so did his use of his personal megaphone, Twitter. With tens of millions of followers, his every musing, joke, and pronouncement could move markets and dominate global news cycles for days. He was unfiltered, chaotic, and often juvenile. He feuded with regulators, attacked critics, and promoted cryptocurrencies. His 2018 tweet about taking Tesla private with funding secured landed him in hot water with the SEC, costing him and Tesla millions in fines. He became a cultural icon and a lightning rod for controversy. But in 2022, he would take his obsession with the platform to a whole new level. Announcing he was a free speech absolutist, Musk made a stunning $44 billion offer to buy Twitter outright. What followed was a dramatic, chaotic saga of on-again, off-again deals, legal threats, and public spectacle. Finally, in October 2022, the deal was done. Elon Musk was now the owner of the world's most influential social media platform. The changes were immediate and drastic. He fired the top executives and laid off roughly 80% of the staff. He overhauled the verification system, reinstated controversial accounts, and began a radical rebranding of the company to X, a nod to his first internet company and his vision of creating an everything app. His leadership has been tumultuous. X has faced advertiser boycotts, technical glitches, and accusations of allowing misinformation and hate speech to flourish. Musk argues he is saving the platform from censorship and turning it into a bastion of free expression. Critics argue he is destroying a vital public square through impulsive decisions and a poor understanding of content moderation. This new role has cemented his transformation from a beloved tech visionary to one of the most polarizing figures on the planet. He now sits at the intersection of technology, media, and politics, wielding a level of influence that is unprecedented for a private citizen. So, who is Elon Musk? Is he the sum of his companies? The man who stares at a rocket and sees a path to Mars? Who looks at a car and sees a sustainable future? Who looks at a social network and sees a battleground for civilization itself? What drives a man who has everything to risk it all, again and again? Perhaps the answer lies in that first principle thinking. To see the world not as it is, but as a system of components that can be re-engineered. To see a rocket not as a single object, but as a collection of aluminum, electronics, and fuel that can be assembled more efficiently. To see humanity's future not as a predetermined path, but as a problem to be solved. His personal life is as complex as his professional one. Multiple marriages, numerous children, some with unconventional names that reflect his nerdy, futuristic worldview. He speaks often about the risk of population collapse, seeing it as another existential threat alongside climate change and unaligned AI. He is a man of profound contradictions. An idealist, willing to bet his fortune on saving humanity. A ruthless businessman, willing to fire thousands to achieve his vision. A serious engineer obsessed with the laws of physics, and a memalord who finds it funny to walk into a building with a sink. His story is still being written. With every Starship launch, every new Tesla off the line, every controversial post on X, a new line is added. He has already changed our world in ways we are only beginning to understand. But for Elon Musk, Earth is just the beginning. The ultimate goal has always been out there, in the quiet, red expanse of Mars. The final question is not what Elon Musk will build next. The question is whether his audacious, chaotic, and brilliant engineering of our future will ultimately save us, or lead us somewhere we never intended to go. The story of Elon Musk is the story of the 21st century, a story of immense technological promise, fraught with human complexity. And it is far from over.